Hi, I'm Angela Nicholson, and in this tutorial we're going to take a look at some of the ways that you can crop an image to improve composition. There are some classical rules of composition, and helpfully Adobe has taken these into account when designing the new crop tool for CS6. We're going to use this image, which has been turned into a simple silhouette, to make it really clear how the composition works. So the first thing to do is to select the crop tool, just over here. And now you can see that up here in the options bar we've got grid selected. If I just click on the image, the grid appears. This grid isn't particularly helpful for compositional purposes, so I'm going to change it to golden ratio. And now you can see we've got 9 rectangles dividing up the image. Now you can see straight away that the tree at the moment is slap bang in the middle of the frame, and the horizon is just below this dividing line here, the lower one. Now to improve this composition under the classical rules, we need to drag the crop down so that the horizon is on the lower dividing line, and also across so that the tree is now on one of the vertical lines. Now in classical terms this has improved the composition because there's a better balance between the space on this side of the image and the space on this side. We're not looking for symmetry, we're looking for something called the perfect ratio, which attempts to balance the image with elements distributed at the correct distance across the frame. And we don't want them slap in the middle, we want elements off to one side with the correct amount of space on the other side. Now let's switch from a grid showing the golden ratio to one showing the rule of thirds. And the rule of thirds is an approximation of the golden ratio. You'll notice straight away that the major difference is that all of the rectangles within the rule of thirds are equally sized. If I just pop back to the golden ratio, you'll see that they're differently sized. So changing back now to the rule of thirds, you can see that if we're going to obey this rule rigidly, then we need to adjust the crop, or adjust the position of the image within the frame. So actually what I'm going to do is just crop in a bit more, and then we can move the image around. So according to the rule of thirds, that image now works well, or we can put it over there. At the moment I've got the unconstrained option selected, so when I move the corners of the image to crop it, I can actually make it thin if I want, or taller, longer, and it's changing the aspect ratio of the image. However, if I switch this to original ratio, it maintains the original aspect ratio of the image, and this is worth considering because the 35mm frame, or APS-C format frame of an SLR, is actually very close to what is classically termed the perfect rectangle. Now let's take a look at another guide that you can use, the golden spiral. You can see this is a spiral which starts at the corner, goes up to the top of the frame, and then round and gradually gets smaller. And as you can imagine, the perfect position for this tree is going to be somewhere near the centre of that spiral. Although we're now basing this image around a spiral, you'll notice that the image is still arranged so that the main subject is off to one side. And if we were to flip this spiral, we could just as well position the tree over there with a larger area of ground beneath it. Now there are a couple of other layout options you can have to help with composition. There's also diagonal and triangle, and usually you're aiming to get a key part of the image at the intersection of these grids, so where these lines meet, to give it particular strength. That one works quite well. It really depends what you've got in the foreground and what you've got in the sky, but we're just using very basic geometrical compositional tools here. If you follow these classical rules of composition, you'll never actually get a symmetrical image, but of course you can produce some great images which are symmetrical. So if we just drag that tree there and then perhaps emphasise the symmetrical nature of it by making the crop square. You see we get an interesting image that works well. Now we can start to obey some of the rules by just dragging that down, so we've got the horizon on this line, but the tree still breaks it. So you don't have to slavishly follow these rules, but once you've understood them, it will help you with your composition.